Good morning. Hello, my name's Tamara Rubin. I'm Lead Safe Mama, and that's leadsafemama.com, Lead Safe Mama on Facebook, Lead Safe Mama on Pinterest, Instagram, Twitter, and all those things, although I'm mostly just here on Facebook and my blog. I am doing these morning videos. I'm feeling kind of cruddy today, so you can kind of tell, like, if you watch the last few videos, I'm like going downhill. My son has the flu, and I think I'm on my way. Anyway, in these videos, I'm sharing things that I have in my queue that I'm working on writing about, and I'm also answering questions. So feel free to ask a question here in the comments. I don't necessarily see all the comments until afterwards, although there seems to be a delay. So do try, and we'll see how that goes. Right now, I just wanted to say some fun facts. As of this moment, there are 26,152 likes on this page and 29,251 followers. My goal was to have 50,000 by my 50th birthday, the end of my 50th birthday month, which is now. So that would be by November 30th. So we didn't quite make it, but hey, maybe everybody can invite one friend to like or follow the page and we would get there really quickly. So let's see, let's start with Christmas, since here we are on November 22nd and everyone seems to be supporting Christmas stuff in the news media these days. So this is dollar store ornaments, and in general, so I will be posting the results of these specific ornaments on my blog shortly. And this is similar to the Target ones, basically any of these ones that come in tubes that are apparently impossible to open. I generally don't like any Christmas ornaments that are going to be, made of plastic, that are packaged in plastic, that you might not reuse every year. And so, excuse me, I'm going to get some scissors and cut this because they're just, the impact on the environment is bad, and especially ones with glitter are bad. So if you have a choice, I prefer to recommend that you make your own Christmas ornaments, because then they have the sentimentality of that your family made them with you, and you can say, oh, we made these that year, remember when that happened, and that sort of thing. And I just don't think, I'm not a big fan of buying Christmas ornaments, especially plastic ones that are in containers that are nearly impossible to open. Anyway, so that said, you can see this sparkly one. I don't expect, hi Serena, I don't expect this to have lead, although I did want to point out that most of these types of ornaments that that have metal on the top are testing positive for like trace arsenic and maybe trace cadmium and sometimes trace mercury in the metal. I think this is all plastic. I do that sometimes and knock things on my teeth to figure out what they're made of. Don't recommend that. Don't do this at home. So I don't expect this to have lead, cadmium, mercury, or arsenic, but it may because it has sparkles. I tested something else recently that had sparkles that was higher lead than a similar item. That was the Starbucks ceramic cup ornaments that were decorated with sparkles. And so this one with the red sparkles had just a little bit more lead than the one without the red sparkles. So I wanted to just say, if you are going to buy Christmas ornaments, the plastic ones from the dollar store like this in the tubes or from Target have generally tested good in that they aren't full of toxicants, but they are plastic, so that sucks for the planet. So it's up to you how far you are on the green spectrum. So I've got a little pile of stuff behind my computer here. So here's another item I wanted to talk to you about. This is positive for lead, as with anything of this nature, and I just wanted to use this as an example. This is I'm just looking at the brand, Castleton Sunnybrook, and it says made in USA. And basically anything like this especially that's vintage and that's 20 years old or older is going to be high lead, and I wouldn't recommend it for food use because the shiny glaze is both on the inside and the outside, and it's usually the shiny coating that is the part that actually contains the lead. And especially if you're using this like as a gravy boat or for sauce, it's likely going to leach lead into the food that it contains. If you have decorative floral china, I don't know how many examples I have on the blog, probably 100 or more of things that look like this that are quite toxic, and I just wouldn't hold on to them. It's just not worth it. And then another thing I wanted to share with you is I've tested quite a few bottles, and I have the results on the blog. They do tend to have trace lead, and I have concerns about long-term storage of water in glass bottles that are positive for trace lead, although I don't know that there are really too many brands that care and that make an effort to make sure that they have lead-free bottles. So look on the blog for some examples. Usually it's below 200 parts per million. The range of lead that I'm seeing in bottles like this is 50 parts per million to 150, sometimes 200 parts per million. And I did see a study recently that demonstrated that long-term containment of a beverage in a bottle stored on a shelf may leach lead at really trace levels over time. So it's definitely a concern in terms of why do they have lead in these bottles anyway? It's a contaminant, not an additive. Can't they make lead-free bottles? We have lots of other lead-free glass options. Speaking of lead-free glass, like this is a Life Factory baby bottle, and it's lead-free glass, 100% lead-free. There's no lead in this at all. And if Life Factory can make their baby bottles out of lead-free glass, why can't the water bottles that we buy in the store be lead-free glass? And I don't have an answer to that. I just think that it's something that we should consider and advocate for as consumers. So this is Life Factory bottle that's lead-free glass, and then I do lots of random segues because I never know what I'm going to say in these videos. So I wanted to share a few lead-free things. So Life Factory baby bottle is a really good choice. There's no painted markings. The glass is lead-free. So far, the coatings, the coverings, these sleeves have either been negative for toxicants or only had very trace levels of cadmium, but that's really rare. Mostly they're negative. I think it's a really good brand, and I use it with my family. Another really good brand is this is Caveman Cups. Oops, just spilled water on my computer. And they're super solid and heavy. And I wanted to share with you, oh, somebody took all my things. Oh, there we go. So these are little kid cups, and I wanted to show you the difference between like a normal, this is a clean canteen cup, also things I have in my home. This is much lighter and likely prone to denting, whereas this is super heavy duty and I think can be chucked across a room without any concern. And it's good for camping and really heavy duty. So I use these for water with my kiddos when they're sick and every day. And I don't necessarily use stainless steel for things other than water. I like using glass, but if as a water glass, I think the clean canteen cups and the Caveman cups are really good choices. And then another thing, people ask me all the time about the dishes I use in my house. And so I wanted to show this. I have an XRF summary of the Correll, new Correll dishes. And recently someone said to me that they can touch and feel the logo on the bottom. And they said they'd read my blog. And on my blog, I talk about how if you can feel the logo on the bottom of a piece of china, it's often leaded. So for example, on this, it's not real prominent, but you can feel it, and it's probably leaded. But I did retest, just to be sure. I retested the logo on the bottom of these, and even though you can feel it, it's still lead-free. So these are lead-free through and through and are a really good choice. And that's my son lumbering down the stairs. Hi, Cole Scott, home from college. Another thing I just thought I'd show some random things that I have in my house is, hairbrushes. I have no concern for lead in hairbrushes. I was going to do a post, haven't gotten around to it. I haven't tested this one yet, and it does have like a silver paint here in the marking, and there's a chance there could be lead in something like that. So I do recommend, if you don't have an XRF in your home and you can't test everything you want, or if you don't have access to tools or resources to test everything, that try and buy things without painted markings. But in general, I think that things like hairbrushes are not something I worry about unless there's some kind of like exotic made in India or vintage antique silver. Those kinds of things might have lead. Another thing I wanted to show you, which was really disappointing, that I tested recently. So every now and then people send me hardware to test and doorknobs and things like that. And, for all intents and purposes, this stainless steel cup looks a lot like this Baldwin door hinge. And this Baldwin door hinge is not stainless steel. It's leaded brass coated with some kind of zinc or nickel plating. And even though it's super expensive, it still has lots of lead. And actually, that's the thing that I've noticed is that the super expensive door hardware has lead, and the cheap door hardware doesn't have lead in most cases. So if you've got like a cheap Home Depot doorknob, pressed metal, even if it's yellow brass, which I generally say avoid, it's less likely to have lead than the heavy duty stuff that is basically sold to you with the intention like, hey, look at this, it's so nice, it's so heavy, it's got really good quality. They add lead to make it seem higher quality. And it's just a sales tactic and a myth and a manufacturing oversight, and I don't know that this is ever going to change. But because there's a million and one of these out there, just like too many of these to count, I can't test every single type of hinge or doorknob. I don't have a huge concern for these sorts of things. I do prefer that the doorknobs not be shiny brass where the brass can wear off onto your hand as you open and close the door, and you can notice that if your brass has a patina that's changing over time, it's likely leaded brass that's wearing. So I do choose stainless steel colored things when I can. And I'm just reading some of your comments as they come in. And so that's a definite thing to consider, but you know, it's not something I would worry about too much beyond the knobs on your door that you touch on a regular basis. And then for that reason, I avoid things from Anthropologie, from Restoration Hardware, from Rejuvenation Hardware. Those stores all have leaded stuff for their knobs and things, and they haven't made any store-wide policy to avoid toxicants. So another thing I wanted to show you is this. I don't know if anybody knows what this is. This is a sealing wax stick, and this is a post I'm going to be doing shortly. My kiddos got this a while ago, and they got red and gold, and they got a little sealing wax stamp. Well, the gold has arsenic in it, and the sealing wax stamp was lead-free, although I think vintage ones are likely to have lead, and maybe even new ones. But the stamp was lead-free, but it was high antimony. And you might say, oh, well, this isn't a concern, you're not putting them in your mouth, but I don't know how you applied your sealing wax stamps when you did your wedding invitations or your Christmas cards or whatever. But what I used to do is I used to drip the wax and then lick the sealing stamp and then stamp it into it so that the wax didn't stick to the stamp. And so you actually end up, I don't know, you might dip it in water, but I used to lick it and stamp it, and then that would make it not stick. So I definitely say avoid that kind of behavior, and maybe avoid the metallic sealing wax choices, because the non-metallic one seems to not have arsenic, but the ones that have kind of a metal sheen, and you really can't see the golden of this, but it's like a shimmery gold. They have arsenic so far in my experience. Let's see. I don't know what else I was going to show you today. One second. I got to look and see what I hid behind my... Oh, yeah. I've got two more things, and then we'll go. So one thing I wanted to have you guys avoid this holiday season is your vintage measuring tapes. There are several of these on my blog. This one is the highest lead one I've ever tested. It's over 30,000 parts per million lead, I believe. I will be posting it soon. And it's in the vinyl and the paint. Basically, in order to make the vinyl pliable, I believe it's soaked in a bath of lead, and the plastic is processed with lead. And what I see all too often is that parents or doctors give these vinyl measuring tapes to babies to play with, especially doctors when they're doing the head circumference and stuff. And they have mostly switched to Tyvek tapes or lead-free ones, but the old ones still, and even some of the newer ones have quite a bit of lead in them. I have several examples on the blog. And so I have also examples of lead-free ones on the blog, and I'll put those in the link above. And then one thing I wanted to share is just really be careful about junky jewelry. This is a high lead ring that somehow found its way across my path. And the concern is that when you rub your finger on something like this, the lead will actually rub off onto your finger. We did a little experiment with my friend Kate and her daughter in New Hampshire where we had blood lead test equipment available. We took someone's blood lead test. They came out as negative, less than 3.3 per the standard of the machine. We rubbed this on their finger, and then we tested their finger, and it was like 6.6. So I know for sure that the lead rubs off lead-containing jewelry onto your fingers, and while that might not be directly representative of a blood lead level that could be created, it can be ingested if you then eat an apple or anything with your hands without washing them first, and it's quite concerning. So I always say buy sterling silver jewelry if at all possible. It's actually amazing how cheap sterling silver jewelry can be, and if it has the 925 stamp, more often than not, it's lead free. Whereas vintage and more really antique silver items from, say, the late 1800s, early 1900s can have high lead. They are not 925 silver. They're usually 800 silver, so they're 800,000 parts per million silver. That leaves 200,000 parts per million to contain other metals, and oftentimes those pieces, including vintage and antique baby rattles and such, can have lead levels in the usually 2,000 to 3,000 parts per million range, which is far above the 90 parts per million that's considered unsafe for children. And that's, again, with dishes, with silverware, with baby rattles, anything antique. So I do say avoid antique silver. All right, so we're into 15 minutes, so 16 minutes. So I'm gonna call it good for now. Please let me know what kind of questions you have, and I'm trying to do a video every day. Check out my website, leadsafemama.com. Go to the links either at the top or the side, depending on your format, that I'll be posting on the video that will be related to all the topics that I mentioned here in this video, and let me know if you have any additional questions, and I'll be happy to answer them. And I'm available for house calls. So right now I'm scheduling for January and April in 2020, and I will travel anywhere in the country pretty much, and my rates and everything are also on the website, and I'll put them in the link. So I like to come to your home and help you figure out what in your home is safe and what your home is unsafe, and safer alternatives for everything that you have, so you can protect both yourself and your family and future generations. Thanks a lot. See you later. Tamara Rubin signing off. Lead Safe Mama, leadsafemama.com.